and dignity of every person, and where we support one another on our spiritual search for truth and meaning. My name is Vicki Barstow. I serve on the worship committee and the board. I'm part of the food pantry and racial justice groups, and I also love singing in the choir. I am serving as your worship host today. So welcome to those in the room, and welcome to those joining us on our live stream. This morning, we welcome again to our pulpit Reverend John O'Connor. Reverend John graduated from Harvard Divinity School in 2022 and serves as a community minister for good works at Arlington Street Church in Boston. Since COVID spoiled John's plans to intern here at the Meetinghouse in the summer of 2020, he's excited to be back as our guest preacher for the month of May while Rev Kate is on sabbatical. Thank you so much for sharing your message with us this morning, Reverend John. Before we go on with our service, I have just a few announcements to share. While Rev Kate is on sabbatical, if you need help with something, contact Kenneth in the office and he'll help connect you with someone. The steeple painting is going well, and our food pantry is open inside during office hours, Monday through Thursday, 9 to 4. And finally, if you're here in person today, we hope you'll stick around for a little while after the service ends for coffee and conversation down in Acker Bosworth Hall. And now, let's take a moment to affirm our community's covenant. You can find this on the little purple card in your pews, or you can just listen line by line as I say it. I invite you to repeat each line after me. Love is the spirit of this meeting house. This is our great covenant. To dwell together in peace. To seek the truth in love. And to help one another. And now, as we light our chalice here in the sanctuary, I invite those of you watching online to light a candle wherever you are. In this way, we can feel connected even when we're apart. I invite Ada to light our chalice for us today as I read these words by Mary Oliver. I happened to be standing. I don't know where prayers go or what they do. Do cats pray while they sleep, half asleep in the sun? Does the opossum pray as it crosses the street? The sunflowers, the old black oak growing older every year? I know I can walk through the world along the shore or under the trees, with my mind filled with things of little importance, in full self-attendance, a condition I can't really call being alive. Is a prayer a gift or a petition, or does it matter? The sunflowers blaze, maybe that's their way. Maybe the cats are sound asleep, maybe they're not. While I was thinking this, I happened to be standing just outside my door with my notebook open, which is the way I begin every morning. Then a wren in the privet began to sing. He was positively drenched with enthusiasm. I don't know why, and yet, why not? I wouldn't persuade you from what you believe or whatever you don't. That's your business. But I thought of the wrens singing. What could this be if it isn't prayer? So I just listened, my pen in the air. And now, I invite you to join us in singing our opening hymn, 1012, When I Am Frightened. That's 1012 in the teal hymnal. When I Am Frightened, please rise as you are able.
You Good morning. It is a delight to be here with you together for the month of May after the pandemic so rudely put an end to our plans for me to be here as your intern minister back in 2020. But here we are together 4 years later. So much joy. Do we have any visitors in the house today? Raise your hand. We do. There we go. Welcome. And a happy Mother's Day to all the mothers here today and online. Can I get you all to give us a wave, mothers? Happy Mother's Day to all of you. I invite you now into a time of meditation and prayer. During this time, or at any time during the service, you are welcome to light a silent candle to the right of the pulpit, where there is a journal to include your thoughts and prayers. After our prayer, we will sing together Spirit of Life, hymn 123, which is also printed on the purple laminated cards in your pews. We'll first sing in English and then in Spanish. This morning's prayer is adapted from the words of Indian philosopher and Buddhist monk Shantiveda, written in India around the year 760 CE. Your gifts to the world. May we be protectors for those without one, a guide for travelers on the way. May we be a bridge, a boat, and a ship for all who wish to cross the water. May we be an island for those who seek one, and a lamp for those desiring light. May we be a bed for those who wish to rest, and a servant for all who want a servant. May we be a wishing jewel, a magic vase, powerful mantras, and great medicine. May we become a wish-fulfilling tree and a cow of plenty for the world. And the great elements such as the earth, may we always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may we also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach unto the ends of space. Amen.
Our first reading this morning is by His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. My religion is kindness. If you wish to experience peace, provide peace for another. If you wish to know that you are safe, cause all. They are looking for love. My religion is very simple. They are looking for love. My religion is very simple. My religion is kindness. I now invite you to join me in singing our next hymn, 1064, Blue Boat Home. That's 1064 in the teal hymnal, Blue Boat Home. Please rise as you are able.
Our second reading this morning is found in Becca Anderson's book, Prayers for Hard Times. The reading is entitled, Being Thankful for Each New Challenge. The author is anonymous. Be thankful you don't already have everything you desire. If you did, what would there be to look forward to? Be thankful when you don't know something, for it gives you the opportunity to learn. Be thankful for difficult times. During those times, you grow. Be thankful for your limitations, because they give you opportunities for improvement. Be thankful for each new challenge, because it will build your strength and character. Be thankful for your mistakes. They will teach you valuable lessons. Be thankful when you're tired and weary, because it means you've made a difference. It's easy to be thankful for the good things. A life of rich fulfillment comes to those who are also thankful for the setbacks. Gratitude can turn a negative into a positive. Find a way to be thankful for your troubles, and they can become your blessing.
Now is the time in our service when we take a collection for the ongoing support of this meeting house and our shared ministry. As we enjoy a musical reflection by our choir, we welcome your donations here in the sanctuary or online through PayPal or Venmo. You can find that information on our website, uumh.org, and there are QR code cards in the pews as well. I invite 3 volunteer ushers to come forward for the collection. On and off site, your offerings will now be gratefully received.
Before we begin our selection, I'd like to let you know that Stuart is going to be playing the postlude today. Stuart, will you? Yeah. Yes! I wanted to thank him, and I wanted to thank Brenda for allowing the richness of our choir to come and join us and entertain you all.
With
Thank you, choir. That was beautiful. American Buddhist nun Pema Chodron begins her most acclaimed and loved book, When Things Fall Apart, with this observation. Embarking on a spiritual journey is like getting into a very small boat and setting out on the ocean in search of unknown lands. With wholehearted practice comes inspiration, but sooner or later, we all encounter fear. For we all know when we get to the horizon, we're going to drop off the edge of the world. Like all explorers, we are drawn to discover what's waiting out there without knowing if we have the courage to face it. Now, while some of us step off the dock and into that very small boat to head out on the water, many others are held back by fear, clinging to the safety of the dock, watching others sail off into the distance, wondering, what are they missing? Numbing a nagging feeling of regret, and wishing that they, too, had the courage to set off in that very small boat. Fear, of course, has its purpose, and when we experience it, we should pay attention. At its most basic level, when we are vulnerable, when the tiger is about to attack, fear sets off a fight or flight response that can well save our lives. This response allows us to live another day and helps us to become more adept at navigating the dangers in the life in the jungle. Don't step on the tiger's tail. Now, while life has changed much for humankind since we first walked out onto the plains as hunter-gatherers, that most basic response to danger, fear, has not. It lives deep within the most primitive part of our brain, the amygdala, ever on guard to protect us from harm and danger. For us today, then, the question is, how do we confront fear when it holds us back from setting out on our spiritual journey, from getting into that very little boat and heading out onto the uncharted ocean waters? A little more than 12 years ago, I found myself standing on that dock, watching others set off on their journeys, wondering about my own spiritual journey. Or should I say, the spiritual journey I most definitely was not having. There just seemed to be something missing in life, but I wasn't exactly sure what it was. Despite the fact that I had survived the AIDS crisis of the 80s and 90s, was in a stable, long-term relationship, had a nice home in Boston and a place here in P-Town, and no longer had to worry about seroconverting because of the new PrEP protocol, miracle, still, I wasn't feeling much joy in it all. I wondered, was I afraid of something? Was something holding me back? And so I announced to my minister, Kim, that I was embarking on what I proudly called my Joy Project. I was going to take a year to read up on joy, figure out what it was all about, why I didn't have it, and how I was going to get it. Typical me. Let me read about something and then think about it for a while rather than actually do something about it. I naturally tend to be more comfortable operating from my head rather than from my heart. It just seems safer. Emotions can be so, well, emotional and rather tricky. Has anyone else ever had that experience and felt that way? Reluctant to dive into that deep pool teeming with complex emotions. Well, it may come as no surprise to anyone more spiritually evolved than I was when I was approaching 50, standing on that dock, that what was missing in my life that would lead to joy was deep and meaningful connections to others. deep and meaningful connection to others. My exploration of joy, honestly, my research on joy, since this was all rather conceptual rather than experiential, well, it kept pointing to empathy and compassion as the keys to forming these deep and meaningful relationships with others. Empathy, compassion. I really had to look these words up and wrestle with them. What I came to understand is that empathy is the ability to sense other people's emotions, coupled with the ability to imagine what they are thinking or feeling. And compassion is understanding of a person's feelings, accompanied by altruism, the desire to act on the person's behalf. In other words, compassion is empathy in action. As someone more comfortable in my head rather than my heart, this all sounded deeply uncomfortable. As my loving husband often pointed out to me, your emotional bandwidth is this big. As an aside, can I just say, isn't it annoying when spouses are always right? But honestly, I wondered, why would I want to feel other people's emotions and then step into their lives and get all tangled up in it? I came to realize that fear of emotional entanglement lay at the root of my avoidance. So how was I going to begin my spiritual journey to get into that very small boat and head out into the uncharted waters of empathy and compassion? In When Things Fall Apart, Pema Chodron points the way to confronting the fears that holds us back. She tells a story. I once attended a lecture about a man's spiritual experiences in India in the 1960s. He was determined to get rid of his negative emotions, but mostly he wanted to get rid of his fear. His meditation teacher kept telling him to stop struggling, but he took that as just another way of explaining how to overcome his obstacles. Finally, the teacher sent him off to meditate in a tiny hut in the foothills. He shut the door and he settled down to practice. And when it got dark, he lit 3 small candles. Around midnight, he heard a noise in the corner of the room. And in the darkness, he saw a very large snake. It looked to him like a king cobra. It was right in front of him, swaying. All night he stayed totally alert, eyes on the snake. He was so afraid he couldn't move. There was just the snake, himself, and fear. Just before dawn, the last candle went out, and he began to cry. He cried not in despair, but from tenderness. He felt the longing of all the animals and all the people in the world. He knew their alienation and their struggle. All this meditation had been nothing but further separation and struggle. He accepted, really accepted wholeheartedly that he was angry and jealous, that he resisted and struggled, and that he was afraid. He accepted that he was also precious beyond measure, wise and foolish, rich and poor, and totally unfathomable. He felt so much gratitude in the total darkness, he stood up, walked towards the snake, and bowed. Then he fell sound asleep on the floor. When he awoke, the snake was gone. He never knew if it was his imagination or if it had really been there, and it didn't seem to matter. As he put it at the end of the lecture, that much intimacy with fear caused his dramas to collapse, and the world around him finally got through. Pema then goes on to explain fear. No one ever tells us to stop running away from fear. We are very rarely told to move closer, to just be there, to become familiar with fear. The advice we usually get is to sweeten it up, smooth it over, take a pill, or distract ourselves, but by all means, make it go away. Sometimes, however, we are cornered. Everything falls apart, and we run out of options for escape. At times like that, the most profound spiritual truths seem pretty straightforward and ordinary. There's no place to hide. Sooner or later, we understand that fear will introduce us to all the teachings we've ever heard or read about. She concludes, so the next time you encounter fear, consider yourself lucky. This is where the courage comes in. Usually we think that brave people have no fear. The truth is that they are intimate with fear. Now, like me, at some point in life, everyone finds themselves face to face with the snake, their teacher on the meaning of fear. And we all have a choice then. We always do. Do we run away from fear, or do we lean into its sharp points, staring into the eyes of the snake? So how do we get intimate with the fear that holds us back? The first step is to observe and come to understand what we usually tend to do to sidestep fear and then stop doing it. Sounds simple, not easy. Those familiar with 12-step work and any variety of self-improvement programs may recognize the ways we tend to avoid fear and other uncomfortable emotions. Pema refers to our avoidance responses to fear as the 4 maras, or demons. While the names of the maras are not important, the way they work in us are. The first avoidance response to fear is seeking pleasure, like drinking or taking drugs as a way to escape from the uncomfortable aspects of being alive. Instead of seeking pleasure, Pema urges us to observe our inclination to run away from fear and then to learn from that which we want to run. What will we learn about ourselves by sitting with our fear, our snake, when we stop seeking pleasure? The second avoidance response to fear is falling back on what we already know, rather than facing the unknown. Talk to anyone in active addiction. Many will admit that the life of an addict is awful, but it's what they know. They're used to it. The pull of the familiar, even when it's painful and self-destructive, is strong. What will we learn about ourselves when we lean into the sharp and difficult points of the unknown, rather than simply fall back on the familiar? The third response to fear is characterized by strong emotion, such as self-righteous anger. When everything falls apart, we tell everyone how badly life has wronged us, and we don't stop until we get everyone to agree with us. Those in the recovery community sometimes refer to this as co-signing onto each other's bull hockey. Rather than yammering on at everyone about how bad we have it, what will we learn about ourselves when we just sit quietly with our fear. The fourth and final response to fear is thinking that if we just meditated enough, or prayed enough, or worked out enough, or ate all the right food, everything would somehow automagically be okay. Rather than running around being busy, doing, what will we learn about ourselves when we turn and confront the snake face to face and then just do nothing? Being awake, Pema argues, is to continually be thrown out of our safe little nests. Remember earlier when I was telling you about my struggle to experience empathy and compassion? Well, be careful what you ask for. Life sometimes serves it up to you in ways you never would have imagined or thought you could endure. The snake in my life, my teacher on fear, showed up in the form of a heroin addict. 11 years ago, I chanced upon a young man with a compelling personality and an interesting story. We struck up a rather improbable, curious friendship. And after a while, he disclosed he was a heroin addict. Soon, his health and his well-being were in serious decline. He was homeless, delusional, and suicidal. Eventually, he was hospitalized with a flesh-eating MRSA infection in his foot, which they almost had to amputate. Over the course of 2 weeks of hospital visits, I came to feel his pain, empathy. I worked with the hospital social workers to get him a PCP and enrolled in Mass Health. I helped arrange for an admission to a medically supervised facility for the homeless so that he could detox and be treated for the MRSA infection. Compassion, empathy in action. But despite all the planning, he was discharged straight to the street after 2 operations on his feet, with a bottle of oxys and a taper schedule so that he could detox himself on the street. Standing with him on the side of the road that day, with his foot bleeding through his bandages, his plan, he told me, was to sell the oxys for heroin and head for a park bench. "I'll be all right," he said. "I've done this before." The pull of the familiar. Inwardly terrified, I said, "No, get in the car. You're with me." Truthfully, I had no idea what this would come to mean. This is where courage comes in. And so began a 10-year journey together, deeply informed by empathy and compassion, all built upon a naive pledge to each other. You stop shooting dope, and I'll quit smoking and drinking. It's been a wild ride. While we are still alive, still friends, I'm sober, he is not. So began my spiritual journey, which has led me here with you this morning. My friends, when we find ourselves clinging to the dock, afraid to get into that very small boat to set off on our spiritual journeys, face the fear. Look the snake directly in the eyes and learn what it has to teach us. Resist the temptation to sidestep fear by seeking pleasure or falling back on old familiar behaviors and habits. Rather than run around getting others to co-sign on our bull hockey or getting busy with whatever we think is going to automatically make everything all right, do nothing. Get intimate with fear. Lean into its sharp points, for fear is our teacher. Our spiritual journey begins with letting go and taking one step off the dock, over the gap, and into that very small boat. All aboard. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen.
It has become our practice to pose a question based on the theme of the service each week. It can be a topic of sharing at coffee hour today or with friends during the week. If you'd like to delve deeper into this question, we invite you to join us at our Zoom coffee hour on Tuesday evenings at 5 p.m. Please contact the office if you need that link. And our question this week is, what fears or discomforts have you experienced in life while on your spiritual journey, and how have you overcome them? What fears or discomforts have you experienced in life while on your spiritual journey, and how have you overcome them?
Before our closing words, I invite those of you here in the sanctuary to reach out your hands, palms facing out. And for those online to reach out and touch the hands, the outsides of your squares. Let's send out loving kindness to those on the left, those on the right, and those to the front, and those to the back. And let us feel it coming back to each other. It's good to be together. I'll end the service today with the words of American singer-songwriter Bob Franke. What can we do with our days but work and hope? Let our dreams bind our work to our play. What can we do with each moment of our lives but love till we've loved it all away? Love till we've loved it all away. The service begins when the service ends. Amen.